Okay, welcome to Soul School. The material that we talk about is packed with light, especially if I start talking kind of fast and channeling. You know, there's so much in that, and that's also why I like to record these for you guys so you can play them back and get more out of it. But the light is unpacking, and so if you find yourself feeling like you get a lot of information and it's multi-layered, it is. And so I try to keep up with that and notice when I get glazed looks on your eyes to just clear it out. So let's just do that right now, because there's a lot of energy that just moved in the building. And your hands on your thymus gland, the easy button. Just take a couple cleansing breaths. Hear your breath. And intend to be in a beautiful orb of light, your soul's light, that's easy to assimilate and receive that which we're going to bring forward today. Anything that's not needed, that you can just kind of let it whoosh away. We're intending that you're grounded at your perfect point of light along the central channel or in the earth, even at above your channel. We'll talk about that today. But wherever you're meant to be grounded, we're just going to intend you're grounded. And smile when it feels right. Open your eyes. Yay! So I have several things I know that I want to get across, as well as what just came through. And so what just came through is about the grounding point. And so the grounding point, when I was first getting all this information in my 20s, I was a yoga teacher. I still am at a level for children. But I would go to ground or tell people to do the tree pose and grow their roots into the earth. And I got really disoriented and sometimes nauseous. I would notice that if I pulled my energy back up, I'd feel better. And so I went ahead and meditated on that and asked, what's going on? And this is probably 25 years ago. And my consciousness was saying, look, you basically have, there's a lot of changes going on in the earth. And by you grounding deep down in the earth right now, it's just too much on your system. We need you to hover. And so I hovered for a while. And I hovered actually till recently. A couple of years ago, I finally got a yes to ground back down. I even birthed my child hovering. She in utero, she's a super brilliant quantum soul. And I never really was guided to ground into the earth at those times, that even during pregnancy, even to birth her. And she was so high vibration, in my body, constantly vibrating, that I would ask, what's going on? And they said, she's bringing in so many other starlights behind her. That's just how she is. And she's real fast. So I finally am able to ground. And so what that means is when you are asking yourself, where am I needing to ground at? And I feel a lot of us, it's great to ground in the earth. I'm not saying that you're meant to not ground in the earth, but if the instruction comes to you that you're hovering, and with this exercise, if you notice that your center point, I call it the grounding star, it's a magenta starlight. If you notice that it lifts out of the earth, essentially like the earth star, and I'll do the practice in a minute, and it lays over your third eye. What that means to me, and through downloads through the years, is that your center, your majority of the super concentration of your soul essence is centered and grounded at the 6th density. And so thankfully, all the door holes of the energy centers are also kind of in an alignment with planes of existence, density, energy, subtle bodies, floors. If you find yourself in the ascension school at night and you're going up floors, or if you have an out-of-body experience and you arrive at the different floors, they're usually lined up to your door holes of your energy centers. So I have used and guided us to use a magenta star of light. You can use whatever. For you, it may be like an earth. It may be a purple star. It may be, anything. Whatever that marker that will symbolize where are you grounded at. It may be an anchor. Notice where that is. And for some of you, you may never have this exercise shift from being down in the earth. Maybe the shift you'll experience as it goes deeper in the earth or rises up a little bit more in distance as far as depth inside the earth. So before I go any further, Susie, I feel like you wanted to share something about that.
I just put together some things.
Yeah, what did you put together?
Well, I've had dreams, multiple. One of the places I go to regularly in my dream life is there's always something with an elevator, and there's different types of elevators. One is very clear glass and goes really like scary high, and there's even like an apparatus to send it up. It has to like spring. I don't know. It's very elaborate. But as you were saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, the floors and the elevators. I'm putting together things in my dreams that.
Yeah.
A few things, little light bulbs went off.
That's awesome.
Oh, that explains that. Okay.
So that Earth star is also something that later in life started to make more sense of what that magenta starlight was. It was actually my Earth star. And so it's an overlooked energy center. I feel like that most people in the healing arts maybe haven't fully like dove into as much. But ultimately, you want to be grounded. And even if your grounding is up the central channel and showing yourself in this type of symbolism that we're going to do this exercise, that it's grounding over your heart energy center and that you're more aligned to the fourth density, doesn't mean you're not grounded. It just means the majority of your essence is holding that fourth density, and you are grounding in that density. You still may do this exercise and not have it do the overlay over the energy centers as a kind of key code for yourself. It may just go into the earth still, but you hear fourth density. So I want it to come special to you, however that mapping system works, because it's really important. When you find that you go looking out and all of a sudden nobody's around you anymore, and you're told to write a book or stay in the cave for a while, you may be at a higher density reality holographic experience. Whereas all of a sudden you get guided that you're done with that project and now it's time to go to the mall. And you go to the mall and there's all these people around and you're back into a lower density. So you can literally leave a room right here, someone else can walk in and it can shift where we are at, where our majority of our soul essence is super concentrated and grounded at. Does that make sense? So why it's so important is because sometimes you leave things behind in lower density places that you need to go pick back up. And so you may feel like you've expanded, you're having this like plateau of like amazingness through your existence, and all of a sudden you start teaching classes or you start seeing certain type of clientele that have a certain similar resonance to things you've healed in your life. And maybe you feel like you backtrack and go back down because all of a sudden you have this phantom pain. So all these different mappings, some of them you're just going to like completely resonate with, and some you're going to get your own new downloads about. And that's why we do the practices, to see how it means to what it means to you. And doesn't have to take long, and it doesn't have to stay, like if we're going to do the exercise in a minute, it doesn't have to stay your grounding point for too long at a certain area. It may just be for a meditation. You feel like you lift above your head and you're, in hyper gamma brain waves and heart waves that are allowing you to almost be like translucent, and you're in that meditative state where all of a sudden we ground back down. You go walk on the earth or walk on the beach later and you come back down in density. So if you could just close your eyes and ask your consciousness, you could use the magenta point of light, but ask your consciousness, where are you grounded at right now? And see if you can notice along your central channel or in the earth above your head where you're either taken to where you may notice that magenta point of light if you're working with that star. And then the second part of this is there some, does it need to shift for you to have the highest and best now experience? And if so, does it change positions? And use any type of yes and no questions or requests to understand, where is that at? Is it at the 7th density? Good. And then when you're complete, open your eyes. If you need to make a note about it, do. And then of the new earth.
Yeah.
Okay, those are really good points. So from Sibel's sharing, when you're spread out, there's moving parts. If you ever get on the app RV, as far as vehicle, that's usually the ascension vehicle, which is you're usually moving around. You're usually dropping in and you're a grid layer doing a lot of different work for grounding and putting in new posts of the new earth and grounding yourself, and then all those that are a part of your reality, that you are projecting, as well as have a group assignment, a monadic assignment, or many monads working together. Those places that you're jumping around, gridding, moving around different homes, moving your RV around or your van if you're living out of your car, are all getting you grounded, but also many others. And you're establishing these new roots that, again, are like in air. So the other thing is that if you found two things that have happened with people in this type of work is that they might have multiple grounding stars, or we later in life called them centering points. It's not so much that it was confusing people for the grounding point when it would go higher, but it was like where that centering or super concentrated essence is at, building out a new plane of existence for you to walk upon the air. So if you found that there's multiples, you could be, multi-dimensional beings, which you are, and have a majority of essence, 33% here, 33% here, and 33% here, with the 1% across the plane of existence. There's that. So be open to, as you do these types of investigations, of like, okay, well, do I need to set new grounding points? Am I lifting all that energy up into a higher plane? And then the other thing is that grounding star at one point for me got as big as my body. And so I was like, well, what does that mean, Spirit? And they said, well, you're now grounded at all densities. And from there, it spread across the plane of existence. And I said, well, what does that mean? Well, you're now occupying and a world builder, building out planes of existence. And so as I was, does that make sense before I go deeper? It doesn't have to be a star, like I said. It just seems that that's what I was seeing when I was getting the download of each energy center. As they stabilized, they became no longer whirling light, they became stars. And so I noticed that I was a walking constellation. And I started seeing everybody. I was like, oh, they're a constellation too. Like they're woke wasn't meaning anything weird back then, but I was like, oh, they're woke. So, or that they're stabilizing and perfecting these energy centers. And that means you're able to be neutral. You're not too far left or too far right. You may get far left or far right because you're having a human experience here of like duality based, situations that go along in the energy centers as they're maturing and stabilizing. But you are able to, at will, come back to center and go, all right, where the best centering stance is to be a witness, so that you can allow the balancing of that energy center to come back. Or if it's still doing a crazy dance, you're like, who, what, when, where, why, what's going on there? So as we do this grid work together, as you step upon this path, the only way out is through everything you're going to go through. The only way you're going to learn is through the things you're going to go through, right? The only way you're going to actually fully embody and get to your master key set is through these experiences. And these experiences that you have are typically a shadow of a past incarnation or another parallel incarnation that you're bringing all your essence to super concentrate to be here right now. So you start to have this grand merger take place where you have addressed enough of your past life, future lives, you know, and all of a sudden you're like, you're coming in stellar. And this is why when you start to come in stellar and strong, super concentrated, the essence that I be, that's why I'm such a, you know, I get a little silly about delete, you know, if someone says something in front of me, I'm like, delete, you know, because I know I have so much energy that if I even think a thought that's negative, I watch it happen, and then, you know, it's all perfect, but you learn about how strong your words and your thoughts are as you super concentrate the essence. And they are always that strong. It's just, it's usually a trail or a echo that you don't really see it happen instantly, because it happens in 2 weeks and you're like, oh, what a coincidence. I said that 2 weeks ago. And you're like, well, your higher intelligence like, yeah, you said it, and it just took that long for you to get it to show up right here. So when you find yourself in pain, right? So this arm was in pain. If we're looking at the physics of the soul, it's a fracturing or a fractaling off or a bleeding of charge. So when I do that magenta star point and it went to my whole body and then it went across the plane of the earth, that meant as a star being, I was able to stabilize myself and then expand, be able to hold the whole ether, all of space, and recognize that this is all me. As this is the point I want to get to. This morning when I was at the Honeymoon Island, like, Spirit's like, go soak and bawl your eyes out. And I'm like, okay. And I'm, you know, dialing into that, and I can see the life, and I'm like, oh. When you are bleeding charge, you necessarily you want to pull back, right? So you're bringing all your energy, not so much, you're asking it to come back home and come back to middle, from bleeding out in chaos called entropy to come home to neg entropy and start to spiraling back in. And the only way these particles of light that are those charges, so all that mean when I say charge, it means if this is a sea of charge, this is a sea of ether. Ether's waves. And the only way you can actually like maybe call them those waves something is when it particleizes. And so when it particleizes, it slows down, it gathers information, it spins a certain way. So if that if that wave of ether slows down, it goes to plasma, fourth state. Ether is fifth state, plasma is fourth state. And as it spins, whether it's spinning to the left or the right, it becomes a negative charge or a positive charge. And so those charges are you either going in entropy to create, and it's not a bad thing, it's just you're going in this perfected, you know, it could look chaotic to you, but it's actually a perfect chaos that's creating this reality that we see. But as you're stabilizing this avatar, you're being the photonic light of your soul. It has a template that wants to not be bleeding. And you know when you're there because it feels good. It feels great. You feel light, you feel buoyant, you feel like you're levitating. If there's anything that doesn't feel that way, you know, for me it was like, they're like, dig into there. You know, yesterday I got a deep tissue massage. This morning I'm in the ocean, like digging and crying, and a fish like slaps my back as I say, I'm like, God, I love you. You know, I'm like, I'm loving everybody. Probably all your names are in there. And I'm just like loving, and anything else that's there. Just to open my heart. And all of a sudden, boom, this huge fish slaps my back. And I'm just like, ah. So
not too many people can say a fish have slapped them in the head.
I've never had that happen.
I mean, ta-da.
Right? There's God, right? Coming home. So if you have it, you know, like feel into there, talk to it. What's in there? What's coagulating? And if you don't feel it, but it's like a phantom thing going out in the field, or it's a situation, you know, this is why we do the Akash, the records, is because we're investigating. We want to know. And if we don't necessarily get any answers yet, you know, you're at least posing the question, and then the space at large, consciousness at large, has to answer you because it's you. And of course, it's always going to echo back to you the answers. So, okay.
I just want to say
Yeah.
I love like just the divine timing also that's at play, because like you said, like sometimes that manifestation can be right away, or sometimes it's like 2 weeks, or sometimes you see or hear something in the winter or the spring, but it's not supposed to happen till the fall, and then time goes and the fall comes and you're like, oh, here it is. Like that was just the divine timing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll notice that in my life at least.
And all of the dance, you know, and the dance that we are dancing and experiencing from, let's say, cycles of time, or from to season through seasons, you know, that's that spin. So we're spinning. Either we're spinning out or we're spinning back to 0 point. And those places that you spin back to 0 point is called presence. And that's when all of a sudden you're like, oh, you know, you're in the moment of it's here, you know, or the manifestation. And so there's that, as well as when we find ourselves seemingly having a long time to get to something to manifest. Something wrong with it, but yet that we're just dancing through time. And that dance through time, you may be present here and there, but usually you're not. You're kind of repeating or experiencing or reviewing. It seems present, but really it's the past. And so that past, present, echo, shadow that you go through to get there, it's telling you and giving you the space to go ahead and do all the deep dives. It's giving you the space to feel into it, to, you know, what's in here, what's left.
Yeah, because maybe like your soul just needs more time to process whatever it has to go through and process to get to that next manifestation point.
Yeah. And it's picking up all those fractals, all those photonic light particles from different places and different experiences.
Oh yeah, you mentioned having to go back, return to places to collect. Can you expand on that?
How to return to places and collect.
Well, you were saying, so you said there might be times where we'd have to go back, return to a location.
Return to location, even, you know, in our meditation, in our mind's eye.
Gotcha.
We may physically go there. We may have a, you know, someone we meet who's over there who can do the work, which is what the Ireland project was also about, helping those stone circles, anything that was left that needed to be cleansed or activated. And so it can come through so many different experiences. You know, it can come through your dream, through your very good visualizations. But yes, you may find yourself going backwards seemingly to go ahead and address something that needed to be understood. Ultimately, it's all about understanding. So if I left that lifetime abruptly and I didn't understand, and my heart was shattered in that lifetime, then when I come up to this similar feeling of my physical body and the emotional state that it was like bringing up, that's where I needed to go ahead and still continue working that out. Which again, if you look at the beauty of all of this, is perfect because it gives you something to actually look at and to see what's left over that I need to process and address so that I can be super concentrated here and live the best life and be able to be present. I can't be present if I'm in pain, you know? I can't be present if I still haven't worked something out and I'm like, you know, lamenting in my mind over stuff. Right? That's why every day rising for me, meditation and doing this work, and sometimes a lot of time, you know, throughout the day is such a gift. It's like, not like, oh no, it's like, oh yes, you know, let me like figure something out. However, if you were here last week when I said, you know, I knew how much I needed to deal with this arm. It was so layered that I was like, oh, let me just do a quick chart, you know, let me just do a quick little thing. And Spirit's like, no, honey, you got some real deep diving to go on this. And I had no tears, you know, so I could cut an onion, and I remind everybody that, you know, if you don't have the tears, like do something that's going to help evoke tears. But the tears really are a great solution of getting those spin of the particle of light to take the right spin to come back home and stop fractaling more out and causing more bleed of charge and pain. That's how we have these quick shifts, quantum jumps, you know, because you're discharging, get it? You're discharging so much of that bound up wound on the DNA. And once you release with a cry, typically, and understanding at the same time, those light particles out in the ether have to come home because like, oh, she understands, and they come home. Or if they're on their DNA and they're wound up, you know, capping off your DNA, it'll just, and you're like, oh, my DNA just unwound. And then all this information starts coming through. Maybe you see the tunnel in your dream, and you're able to actually have a big packet, a big download unpack for you of like, that's what happened, because it got sped up with the tears. Yes. So, any other thoughts before I go to the next topic? When we're looking at this elevator up our central channel, and you feel that I'm going to shift from grounding point right now. Spirit wants me to call it centering point. We're going to shift. I forgot about that. So the centering, the majority of your essence is super concentrated. Let's say it's at the heart. Okay? And I was saying magenta, but okay, so you got this centering point right here. What that essentially means when you hear me say floors and planes of existence, it means that the majority of your essence is on a build out of the plane of existence at the fourth density. So although, you know, you could go to a store and there's not, majority of what you're projecting the reality is a fourth density experience. However, you see someone break out in some kind of weird activity and you're like, you like even don't even get called to it. Your eyes just kind of go over it. And you're not even asked to look at it. Spirit, you know, your intelligence is like, it's not even going on. You don't even have that thought. It's just like, what I want to point out is that there could be multiple densities, multiple plane of existence, multiple floors being witnessed at the same time. So you may ask, you know, am I being like mean or rude, you know, not engaging? And Spirit may be like, no, that's not for you. You're just holding space and you're witnessing it, but that's a lower density. You don't need to entangle with it. Just move along. Okay? So it's like you're walking out on this plane, but yet the bigger being of you is, if you were to close your eyes in meditation, you could see that you're actually working with this plane of existence. And so when Margie's at her house and she puts those flowers in the posts, so we talk a lot about that when you're asked to put signposts or new posts in the ground or stones, sometimes you actually are helping to build out a new plane of existence, a new earth, a new place for yourself to be, you know, holding more of a gross matter state of existence and play. Okay? Make sense? Okay, good. Any questions on that before we move on to blissing the energy centers some more?
I have a quick question,
Yeah.
just to clarify. You said that would be fourth density. Why is that the fourth one? Where's 1, 2,
Out of the
and
heart.
3?
So each energy,
Sorry.
yeah, no, I'm glad, because
What are the other numbers?
so each energy center
Oh, so the
is a
chakras.
door.
Okay.
So first, second at your navel, third,
Yeah.
fourth, fifth, 6, 7, 8, and beyond.
Gotcha.
So and let's also, when we're doing the energy centers in a minute, we want to make sure we remember the knees and the feet and that earth star. You know, if it's essentially, that's where you're seeing it at, is down into the earth. And we've got, you know, higher energy centers that go up higher. But if this is like a mountain, if you ever hear like you're going up a mountain, or you dream that you're going up the mountain, it's not an ascension school in your dream, it's a mountaintop. You know, it's also you getting to know yourself in the greater space coaster, that you're up on the mountaintop at the very top meditating, you know, at the 7th density. Or you're asked to be at the 7th density and write a book and don't leave your house a bunch. Or you're in the cave in the 7th density. As you get into these higher densities, what Spirit shows me is that's It's like they're holding bigger terrain. You know, they're holding like bigger build out, bigger world, God, goddess, source build outs. You may acknowledge yourself more of like, you know, a higher self team, not necessarily an individual soul or a over soul, a huge causal being or an angelic. Does that make sense? So this is, you know, starting to understand your inner map, both out of this experience of the avatar, whether it's in lucid dreaming or an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience. Anybody had near-death experience here that's seen kind of build-outs like this?